Welcome to another Unmuted with Marsha. And today our guest is Kellyanne Conway. And she is someone who has truly been and continues to be a trailblazer. She's a lawyer, she's a pollster, a media expert, and the first female to ever run a winning presidential campaign. So, Kellyanne, I am just so thrilled that we could grab a few moments of your time. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Senator Blackburn. And thanks for having this platform so that conservatives can converse on big tech. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Let's start off. I want to ask you what it was like to move from the campaign into being an advisor and a special counsel to President Trump.
Well, thank you for asking. I have to say, Senator Blackburn, that January 20th, 2017 was exactly my 50th birthday. So my first full-time government job was on my 50th birthday. Many people enter half a life before that. And I highly recommend to anyone out there, particularly the young people, if you can fit in some type and level of public service into your career, do it, because it's incredibly rewarding. And what struck me most going from a political campaign and indeed a political life and life as a pollster for corporate and political America was truly how rewarding it is to feel like you're one small molecule that can help people. I know you've got a heart and a mind for public service, first woman ever elected to the United States Senate from Tennessee. And I've been watching your career since you were a state senator, fighting back against a Republican governor's tax increases, and then winning a really crowded field to get to the US Congress. So like you, I got to the White House and dug in and decided there is so much need. There are so many problems that need solving and even attempting to solve in this country that there was a bit of a learning curve. But after a while, you settle in and you realize that there are so many people relying upon your decisions, our police officers and law enforcement, our military, our veterans, our military spouses, those who need to be more generously resourced and more deeply respected, are standing around the world, recalibrating trade deals. In addition to that, just making sure that all types of work were dignified, that people who want to get back to manufacturing or coal mining or stay-at-home small businesses or stay-at-home moms, that everybody from them to the CEO of corporate America felt that our policies were benefiting them.
Well, and I think that's important to do. And I also want to note you did a tremendous amount of work with our local law enforcement, our communities, looking at federal policy on the issue of drug abuse and the opioid epidemic. And we really appreciate the leadership that you brought to that issue and how you brought people from across the country together to figure out what are the best ways to address this problem. One of the things that has interested me this year in the first year of President Biden's campaign of his service as president is how the issue set has just changed. People are now saying that the economy and inflation are overshadowing their concerns about COVID. They feel like we've got to learn to live with COVID. So what message should the Biden administration be taking from what they're hearing from the people?
Well, Senator Blackburn, I believe the Biden administration, the Democrats, do not have a messaging problem. I believe they have a fact problem. Their position on the issues is way out of touch and out of sync and out of step with what Americans are telling pollsters right, left, and center, including in these media-sponsored polls, that they are expecting from their government. And you just hit it perfectly. The economy, inflation, financial kitchen table, economic concerns, and the long-term health of the family budget has replaced and displaced COVID as the number one concern. Why? Well, because you feel it everywhere you turn. And these are not luxuries, these are basic necessities. The cost of meat, chicken, rental cars, tuition, consumables, basic goods and services. You're getting hit by the Biden economy, the Biden-Harris inflationary numbers. You're getting hit every time you go to the grocery store, every time you're at the gas pump, every time you try to pay a bill, every time you see what's left over in your paycheck. So everywhere you turn, the economic indicators are very clear that this is literally a country that's not working. It's not working enough and it's not working well enough. Just Today, just this week, we saw inflationary numbers that are the highest since 1982. So the whole "but Trump" has hit a buzzsaw. Nobody blames Trump for that. They know who's been in charge for over a year now. And we just started doing a pretty clever thing in our polling, Senator Blackburn, that I want to share with you. Instead of just saying what's the top issue, is it the economy? Is it inflation? Is it border security? All those are very high up. Is it COVID? We have now separated COVID out. Is your top concern COVID as a health concern? Is your top concern COVID as a lockdown and closure concern? And it is just fascinating to see the divide on that big issue. And I think that also answers your question as to why the economy has swept in there and replaced COVID as a chief concern. Also, look, people, whether they've chosen to or not, they have access to 3 vaccines and a whole bunch of therapeutics that President Trump's administration put forward. No one perhaps has done more to confuse people and maybe dissuade them from having the vaccine than probably our Vice President, Kamala Harris, who said famously in October 2020, well, I don't think I would have confidence in a Trump vaccine. I wouldn't take it. Well, she did. She did take it. She got her shot in the arm while Donald Trump was still president, she and 12 million other Americans. So with all the confusion out there and then all the government mandates, Joe Biden politicizing science made it exactly that. He made it political science, mandating that our military, that our businesses, that our government agencies, and so many other places must have vaccines in place or you lose your job. Do you know 2 years to the day when President Trump was taking out Soleimani, our brave men and women in the military were facing discrimination and termination because they wouldn't comply with vaccine mandates. Think about that.
Yes, and one of the things that has so interested me about this, and a medical researcher in Tennessee that I was speaking with pointed this out. He said, the COVID coronavirus is following the exact same path, in his opinion, that the Spanish flu followed. He said, we're 3 years into this now, and we've had COVID-19, we've had Delta, now we have Omicron. And we're going to continue to have different variations, and it's imperative that we learn to live with this. And I think that's where a lot of Americans are. They are learning to live with it. And I think it's one of the reasons that when they look at the Biden administration and they look at foreign policy and they look at inflation and they look at the failings of the vice president, it really frightens them what is going on in this country. I have to ask you, since you brought up Vice President Harris, she is really insisting on making her gender the excuse for her failings and lack of performance that she has brought to the office, which should have been for her and for all women a historic opportunity for a woman to lead. So what are your thoughts on how she is trying to pivot on her failings?
People know what they see. And when I hear from Vice President Harris or anyone else, the excuse that her poll numbers, which are historically low for a vice president, at one point she was at 28% approval rating just a month or two ago. And that really is the lowest since pollsters have been tracking vice presidents over 50 years, Senator Blackburn. When I hear her blame sexism and racism, I have a very easy response. It's called eyesight and hearing, not sexism and racism. People are hearing her and they're watching what she is doing, and more importantly, what she's not doing. You have the president of Guatemala saying he's talked to her exactly one time before he came all the way back to Washington, and she's the border czar. She did a drive-by at the border, but she is the person tasked in our United States government with the very important role of solving the border crisis, which has only gotten worse on their watch. We have over 2 million people, it is reported, have crossed the border. You mentioned the drug crisis. 18 to 44-year-olds, the number one cause of death for them right now is fentanyl all across this country. And Tennessee is not, and her home state of California are not immune to that. It's an indiscriminate crisis that we're in. They've done precious to nothing. They've made it worse. So when she uses that as an excuse, I think she's running into a problem with independence. with lots of women and with even some Democrats who know that perhaps part of the reason she was chosen, was for her gender. So you can't make your gender the excuse as to why you're underperforming. Now, Senator Blackburn, they don't have to trust two Republicans like you and me on this. They don't have to look any further than her own office and advisors. They have been very upfront to the media. 18 different sources spoke to Politico in an article about Vice President Harris that was completely scathing. Let me give you some quotes that I've memorized. She gives out, quote, soul-crushing insults constantly, that she is, quote, unprepared. They give her these briefing books with which we are both very familiar. They give her these briefing books. They claim, those who work with Vice President Harris, she doesn't want to use them. And then she gets mad at them when she looks or seems or frankly is unprepared. So it would be fun to poke fun, but these are very serious times and these are very weighty issues facing our nation. And when you have the number two, the Vice President of the United States, absent, and you have her staff upset with her and jumping ship, like, you know, as if it's sinking, and you have a president and a chief of staff, Ron Klain, and others who don't seem to have a lot of faith in her to deploy her and to assign her other major issues. That's really bad news for the country. It's great news for you, because I think if President Trump runs again in 2024, whoever the nominee is, it's either going to be a woman if he decides not to run, or he'll seriously consider selecting a woman as his running mate. And why not? Not just a woman for woman's sake, because he's never done that. A woman because he recognizes that we're one half of the country, or more than one half of the country, more than one half of the electorate. And we have to restore faith that women leaders in government can get the job done. I'll say one last thing, because I know you know this, and I certainly know this. When a woman finally ascends to a position of power, authority, and responsibility, and then, of course, achieves at the highest levels, I feel that we're almost doubly expected to overperform. I still get the questions about balancing work and family. You still get the questions about maybe the assignments. Now, there you are, grilling people over the Afghanistan withdrawal, grilling people from your position on the Judiciary Committee. But I know that's because you're prepared and smart. I feel for women, we almost have to overperform, and then we have a responsibility to bring other women up in the ranks. Kamala Harris is not known for doing that either.
Well, you're right about bringing other women up and the importance of being over prepared. When my daughter was in high school, I put a poster in her closet, and it was of Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. And it said she took every step he took in high heels and backward. Oh. And of course, her name was not the marquee name. And so we do expect some of that, but it cannot be the excuse for poor performance, which is what the vice president has shown. I have to get to what advice you would give young women, because Kellyanne, you started packing blueberries, working. You did this as a teenager out there working, helping to earn money so you could go on to college and you could excel, and bringing that experience to bear, building your own business. So we've got lots of conservative young women who are looking and listening. They want to help their country. So what advice do you have for them?
I would say several things, and I would tell a younger Kellyanne the same thing had I known then what I know now. First and foremost, be a positive person. There's a lot of negativity everywhere. It's so easy to be a naysayer or a critic. It's so simple to get caught up in the social media cesspool or other people's views of you or your political party or your political leaders or just anything that is associated with you. And you cannot allow other people to define you. You know who you are. You know what your beliefs, your values, and your vision are. And that will come through if you just convey that to other people who are listening. But be positive. In addition, do your homework. Senator Blackburn, there simply is no substitute and no shortcut for preparation. And that doesn't mean that hierarchy has to get in your way, but respecting the fact that there is hierarchy, that there are people who come before you who know a thing or two and would be willing to share it with you. And related to that, I tell young people, particularly young women, be willing to accept the word no more often than you say it. What does that mean? That means that you will be rejected, you will be disappointed, you will not get internships and professional positions and romantic relationships that you wanted or you thought you deserved above the person who got that job or got that promotion. That's okay. There are other opportunities. So learn to accept the word no and not to fear no and rejection. I think Ronald Reagan proved to us all that winners are people who are willing to lose. He lost the first time he ran, and he lost the first time he put up an anti-tax proposition in California, only to turn around and have it succeed years later. And then he succeeded years later. Many examples like that throughout our lives. But don't say the word no so much. Be available, be accessible, be pleasant and helpful and smart and strategic. And the old saying, nobody should care who gets the credit as long as you get the job done. So if they ask for a volunteer, can somebody work late tonight and tomorrow night? Can somebody fly here on the weekend? Be the person who raises her hand, not, well, I have dinner plans. Oh, I haven't been to the gym in a week. Oh, I have. Say yes, and then figure out how you can do it. Chances are the urgent need may pass. And you
Yes.
get credit for the person who stood up and put up and said, I'm going to help. So I'm telling you, opportunity does not always knock twice. And the one thing you want to be known for as a professional woman, in addition to being smart and being prompt and being trustworthy and having integrity, is being reliable. Under promise and over deliver. And I
That
would
is so
every
true.
woman, yes, and I would tell, I'm sorry, I would tell every woman out, young woman, one other thing. Make a list. Make a list of everybody who knows someone who knows someone. Do it right now and start making those calls. We were all interns and apprentices at some point, and then there becomes two kinds of people later on. Senator Blackburn, there are those who loved being interns and apprentices. I did. And remember that, and remember how valuable it was to have a mentor or three bringing you along and sharing experiences and not being too busy and too chaotic for you. Then you have people who have made it who resented that they ever had the internship or apprentice position. Don't worry about it. You'll be able to separate the wheat from the chaff. But mom has a college friend who's the CFO of a corporation you like. So and so is a state senator in your make the inquiry, because I'll tell you, maybe 98 times out of 100, you will get a response from them. You can go in for a cup of coffee. They're going to learn as much from you as you will from them. But that's really the way to make those connections.
That is just so true. Building that network and working that network and remembering all along the way that leaders raise up other leaders. And I think that is so important to remember. You have been absolutely wonderful to join us for Unmuted with Marsha, and our audience can keep up with you at Kellyanne Polls on Twitter. And they're going to find me on social media at Marsha Blackburn. Kellyanne Conway, what a delight. Thank you for a few moments of your time.
Senator Blackburn, thank you and God bless.